instead of a usual book review, I'm going to run through a run of comics. Not all of the Astonishing Tales. I loved the Astonishing Tales. 1970s, these were put out. It was a sort of two-split story for quite a bit. Then it became Deathlock and other stories, etc. And also they did Amazing Adventures when you had Inhumans and Black Widow. And Killraven, of course. I love those as well. And apparently they were going to do a third one, which I did not realise. Iceman and Doctor Strange. Weird combination, but I guess it worked well with Human Torch and Doctor Strange. So why not with Iceman instead? That sadly never turned up. I wonder if the stories were ever done, some of the stories. However, get on to this. Of course, you've got Ka-Zar and Dr Doom, a weird mix. Now, I'm going to run through the stories, but before I do that, I'm just going to quickly show the covers. So that's obviously number 2, number 3, number 4, probably go number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. And that one was slightly different because it was actually a good old 25-cent one, so it was slightly thicker, which is quite nice. Then number 9. Now it changed at this point. Ka-Zar or Ka-Zar took basically over, though we did have a backup feature in this one, so you got backup feature. Why they got rid of Doctor Doom? I have no idea. I love Doctor Doom's story. However, the story does go, of course, continued on later, but very odd. I don't know, it should have been kept the same all the way as far as I'm concerned. Number 10. Then number 11, they had some real daft titles as well. Magar, I should say. Magar. And then you had number 12. All these comics are all going all over the place. Number 13. That's your man thing. Then you've got number 14. And number 15. I'm probably going all the way through. Suddenly I'll probably find I've got one out of order. Number 16. Number 17, and that was the first Ka-Zar that I ever bought. I loved this character. That story continued on a bit with, obviously, the Avengers story with Zodiac. Then you got number 18. Again, you had some real daft ones. Gog. They really were struggling with the names, I think, there. And this storyline, I loved it, the Super Soldier storyline. Number 19. And then you got this one. So I'm just going to run through the comics, but I say it did change at this point after this. Now you notice most of my copies are quite tatty old copies, so they're not slabbed or anything. They're all just sort of, basically I love reading through them and they're fairly tatty. So I'm just going to run through them now. Hope you find this of interest. Issue 1. Now this is Ka-Zar or Ka-Zar. I don't know. Everyone says it's slightly different. And Dr Doom. I think probably got his name right. Well, Dr Doom is created sort of Frankenstein's monster. It's a great story. He's got also revolution problems at home, which he has to sort out, and he's got his usual devious plans to work on. And you've got Kraven, and that's another story where it's set in the Savage Land initially, then goes to New York, which of course gives the opportunity for being a different sort of jungle. You've got also brilliant artwork here. You've got Jack Kirby, superb artwork there, Kraven Hunter, and then Wally Wood there with the Doctor Doom story. Now, why this collection is own, I think, Marvel Rarities volume in the Marvel Masterworks. I would love to see a collection of these Doctor Doom, just sort of odd stories that have been, the ones in Astonishing Tales, because it only went up to issue 8, but there's like Marvel Superheroes, there's a few other odd ones that Doctor Doom appeared in, and also they could include the origin and maybe a few other stories. That would be a lovely collection to get. So this one, see there. Now, this story continued on into issue 2. You've got Kraven again. You've also got The Mercy of the Doomsman. Now, of course, Ka-Zar is in New York. And the story for Doom, he's still got his Frankenstein monster. Got a bit of a problem with. Creates this thing, maybe not a great idea. Also, you've got the Faceless one as well in the next story. But even better is you've got Sun King and Barry Windsor Smith, or Barry Smith, there. So absolutely brilliant. Just love Barry Smith's work. And that's just a great issue. And of course, still got brilliant Wally Wood's artwork there. Then on to the next story, issue 4. You've got, again, Barry Smith. Just love that. Just beautiful work. Sam Granger and Sam Rosen for the lettering. So the sun god there. Just glorious story. And Red Skull turns up. This is sort of like supervillain team up, like those stories. I don't know if those stories were included in the Essential Supervillain Team Up or any other supervillain team up book that's come out. But anyway, there's those stories with Red Skull. And you've got Red Skull on the cover this time, just to give a big clue that it's the Red Skull in it this time. Again, actually, poor old Ka-Zar sort of got a bit smaller there. It's gone back to, they keep varying the size slightly of the bars. Don't know why. However, absolutely superb artwork. Barry Smith again. I love that one. Rampage. And you've got, again, Red Skull in the next issue. Now, the artwork does change, unfortunately, here, because it's George Tuska. I love Wally Wood's artwork. George Tuska is fine as well, but I like Wally Wood. Then we got a story here. Black Panther's in the story with Dr Doom. And you've got the man god that men call down. Just beautiful, beautiful artwork. And this issue, Bill Everett and Barry Smith, Where the Winds of Death. And this one's even more special for me because it's my favourite character. I love Origin of Mockingbird. Just tucked away there. So you've got a brief appearance of Mockingbird, though we, of course, at this point, know nothing particularly about, but that's the character issue 6 turns up in. And of course, like I say, you've got a Black Panther story there with Dr Doom. Next issue you got, and one is Traitor. I have no idea. So you got here Roy Thomas, obviously brilliant, and Herb Trimp. Herb Trimp now takes over. Weird sort of. So obviously Barry Smith gone now. Herb Trimpe is another brilliant story as well. Actually, I love again these things. Always the thing I love again. Good old checklist. And this, you got these portfolios. Daredevil, obviously Spider-Man and so on. So you've got some great little portfolios there. Superb. Marvel Mania. On to the next story. And that's Black Panther. Black Panther story. Superb artwork there. Absolutely brilliant. Well, just going to turn to that way because, of course, it's Gene Colan. They really did change. They were never consistent with this. They were really just all over the place. Gene Colan. I mean, 1 minute one person, 1 minute. Anyway, no wonder what happened in the next issue. This is a 25 cents. It was quite a big one. As the price has gone up a bit, you've actually got a few more extra pages. This one, Battle of New Britannia, you've actually got the first full appearance of Bobbi Morse, Barbara, or horse Mockingbird, a little bit later. Great story, and that's back in the Savage Land. Also, you've got this story, The Badge Bedeviled, which is an odd one. Don't know if it's ever been reprinted or anything. However, the storyline did continue a little bit later, but not in a separate strip. I assume that there was no idea this story was going to be a new character and was going to continue on with his own stories, but that didn't seem to happen. So quite a one-off sort of thing. I don't even know if it turned up in the Marvel Rarities. No idea. On to the next one. Dr Doom, an absolute classic where he's trying to save his mother's soul. Absolute brilliant story. And this is the last of the Dr Doom stories. And weirdly, at the end, it actually says Death Mask. Now, that storyline, I think, was continued somewhere else. I think Submariner, I think, had that story. Also, you've got a lovely Marvel feature. I loved all those ones. You've got Marvel feature there. And, of course, Conan there. Brilliant ads for that. Next story. Astonishing Tales, issue 9. And you've got, they always had weird names. Aranda, Queen of the Lizard Men. Absolutely superb. And, of course, brilliant bit of artwork again. John Buscema. And very unusual story. The next story at the back, and it wasn't all Ka-Zar again, or Ka-Zar. You've actually got Lorna the Jungle Girl. I wonder if they were intending to actually run a whole load of stories, and I would love to see. Now, of course, there was a Jungle Adventures reprint, Marvel Masterworks, Volume 1 to Volume 3. So those stories have been reprinted, I think. I don't know if all of them have been reprinted, but certainly, obviously, there's some brilliant. This is 1950s Atlas period. Obviously, it's sort of like Shan or the She-Devil kind of thing, but obviously the early version. On to the next one. This is Must Get Free, Nothing Can Stop Ka-Zar. Well, the Savage Land is doomed. And onto that, Barry Smith again. Well, Barry Smith suddenly turned up again, and this is just issue 10. It really did vary the artists. It was bouncing back between Herb Trimpe, George Tuska, John Buscema. Really couldn't keep up with the change. And again, you've course got my favourite there. But now it's a full entire comic. It's not no other backup strip or anything. I don't know why they did that. I think in many ways Ka-Zar never really could sustain the whole of the comic. Personally, I always felt that maybe they could have done it in 10 pages, good storytelling, 10 pages, and maybe just had another story as well. I don't know. That's just... Of course, you've got the usual things, which again is never included in the omnibus, and this one's actually quite nice because it's got Power of Warlock there. So you've got an ad for, of course, him or Warlock, as of course he was called then. On to what he's called now as well, of course. You've got Magar, the Man-Ape. The names were daft. Really, that's the trouble with a lot of these ones. And also you've got the origin of Ka-Zar and Zabu. And now, of course, another one of my favourite artists, Gil Kane. And of course, Mockingbird again, Barbara there. This is Day of Tigers, which is really odd when the title, well, anyway, they always had different titles. But it was great, you get a little bit of origin about Ka-Zar there. And all the way through to the storyline. Now, great, brilliant Gil Kane artwork. I love Gil Kane work, along with Barry Smith and many other artists. Quite often in these videos, I'm always telling myself, I love this artist, I love that artist. And it's true, I just love most artists. There's a few artists I'm not so keen on. But then you got next one, number 12, and you got, again, John Buscema. Again, this I was going to say, just whenever I look at it and think, I have to quickly look and think, who's the artist? Because this one's actually slightly hard to see. Where right at the top, suddenly normally it's sort of like a panel or something. Or seeing where is it? And you've got Dan Adkins. Often changes the style of the artwork. So you've got weirdly, you've got a brilliant bit, which always, I must admit, and I always said that's, yeah, I'm going to say Neil Adams. As soon as I just looking at that thinking, that just looks like Neil Adams, doesn't look like John Buscema at all. So you've got a bit of Neil Adams in there as well, Man Thing. Just unusual, just having near enough a sort of sequence that was probably from one of the black and white mags, but just coloured up. I don't know if that was the case. It's possible. And of course you've got my favourite villains. I love them. AIM, good old advanced ideas mechanics. They're always useful for being beaten up, having crazy ideas to rule the world, and still never sorting it out. I don't know why they bother. Why don't they just spend, with all their super brains, their intelligence, why don't they do something useful instead of always trying to rule the world? Anyway, mere quibble on that. But occasionally they do get a little appearance on the cover as well. You've got a little, obviously their good old AIM. Because they always have that still in mask, so you can never see who the characters, who the people were. Always sort of. Anyway, what a ridiculous bunch they were. And you got John Buscema, and again there, Rick Buckler, Man Thing again, and on to that next story. And again, you got Bobbi Morse in there, and this one, it's a great cover. That's a good old. Very unusual one there. Strike Zabu, the mightiest jungle hero of all, monster and machine. They always had weird titles as well. And then the Night of the Looter this time. John Buscema again. Also another brilliant ad there. You've got the cat. They also, at this point, Marvel were bringing out lots and lots of these weird sort of storylines. You had the Gunhawks, Doc Savage, Man Thing, of course. There was a real loads of inventive sort of creature, sort of creations that were going on here. And you can see by obviously the increase of the list of here, you've got Spoof and things. You've got Marvel Spotlight. It brought all these, of course, that was Ghost Rider Lives, or does he? Then we're back into They Stalk the Concrete. So he's back in New York at this point. And you've got Ka-Zar. Who will call him Savage? Absolutely brilliant artwork. And again, it changes. Really Gil Kane. Just amazing the amount of backwards and forwards the artist. I don't think there was any consistency in terms of the art. And again, we've got another, I think it's just flicking through there just to quickly see if, she's in there. She got Mockingbird again, turns up. Very brief appearance. She's sort of on and off, sort of girlfriend to Ka-Zar at this point. However, you got a storyline that was building up with S.H.I.E.L.D. So there was a S.H.I.E.L.D. storyline that sort of comes in a little bit later. And what's this one? This one is Rick Buckler. Completely another change. To Stalk a City. So you got there. This sort of is a bit of a non-story. There's not really much of a story. Obviously, a solo AIM, not good old AIM turns up again. Anyway, this is the story that continues that one I mentioned earlier, the badge one. So you've got here, Gemini. You've had it, Jungle, or the power of two men or more. I just felt that it would have been much nicer if they just continued as a strip and not had him, like obviously the villain element, but sort of reducing him then to yet another superhero, which is a pity because I think that the police story would have been interesting. Anyway, that's my sort of bit of a rant on that. I just feel that Marvel could have done more sort of stories like police, medical ones. They brought out all these sort of night nurse at the time, that sort of stuff. I know they weren't very popular. I loved them. And I think they could have done a similar thing with police as well. They could have had a storyline where you had sort of police character. Weirdly, they didn't obviously continue with that idea and just went purely superhero. But you've got S.H.I.E.L.D. in this as well. That's quite... and of course, that sort of connects again. That's got an absolutely brilliant artwork. I love this. This was one of my first... Well, it was the first. So, Dan Adkins. First exposure to Marvel's Ka-Zar, because this was around 1973, yes, 1972, 1973, April 1973 issue. And of course you've got Bobbi Morse there again with Ka-Zar, obviously looking slightly odd out of his usual sort of jungle garb. And of course, as usual, there's also problems. People barge in and try and kill everyone. And you've got good old this character, who of course later on is with Zodiac, so that's continued in the Avengers story. But again, like I say, it would have been better if they'd just done a storyline as a separate strip. That didn't happen. But S.H.I.E.L.D's in the story, and that's a key thing because later on, we'll see Bobbi Morse is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then we got another crazy one, Dog. They had some really daft titles in this. But it also, there's a storyline, again with S.H.I.E.L.D., you got the Super Soldier story, which I really loved. And actually that continued on a little bit later as well. There's quite a bit of Super Soldier with S.H.I.E.L.D., with Mockingbird as well. And obviously you've got a story there, you've got a bit of Captain America and Super Soldier there. And you got to finish off, number 19, you got the Super Soldier, obviously strikes. From your dying hands. Just absolutely, I love this artwork, and I still love this artwork. I loved it at the time when I first got these comics. I just absolutely loved them. And this, I'm just going to get to that first page. Victorious. And men shall name him Victorious. Well, unfortunately, of course, he wasn't particularly very victorious in the end. What a silly name to go with, Victorious. You can only decide that afterwards, once you've actually won a few victories, maybe. No. But this is Dan Adkins again. And like I say, this series really did backwards and forwards all over the place. And then, of course, Victorious, you have felled Zabu. For that, you must die. Poor old Zabu. And, of course, Mockingbird gets on the cover there. Obviously, slightly different from a little later. And again, changing the artist again, it's really sad. And again, Mary Severin. Superb artist, absolutely brilliant. And Werner Roth as well, no less. Now that was an unusual issue, that one. Again, it's when you see, oh, there she is. And also you've got an advert for that. I love Crazy magazine. I never bought a single copy of that. I don't know why. I don't think it was actually readily available in the UK, so I just never got a copy of it. Of course, Foom, I did join that. That was a good little magazine. I love Foom. Son of Satan. So again, they did have these sort of oddball sort of characters turning up in things like Marvel Spotlight and Marvel Feature and those sorts of things. And of course, again, you've got the Marvel bullpen there. And again, so you've got there, you've got AIM, good old AIM. AIM are always turning up. You always know that virtually they're bound to be defeated at the end. They're completely, utterly useless. And what's the thing? The next issue, The Savage Land. Bit of a sort of very helpful. I have no idea if there was planned any future issue. Obviously, there was a future issue because he got his own series of Ka-Zar. I never collected any of them. Weirdly, I looked in I think, oh, I must have a few. Because I've got one issue of that set. Hopefully, they'll collect them in a complete omnibus collection at some point. Likewise, these as well. I'd love to see. I've got them in Marvel Masterwork, but I haven't got them in a complete sort of omnibus collection. I would love that. So that would be great. Next issue, so obviously there was no next issue. Next issue, story changed. And that was it. That's a run through of obviously of all these Astonishing Tales. So very few, I've got hardly any complete runs of anything, but this is one of the ones I just, for some weird reason, Astonishing Tales was just a title that just I always enjoyed. Of course, the Deathlock one I think is probably pretty expensive, so I doubt if I'll ever get that. But and the series didn't actually last much longer. I think it was about issue 29 was the last issue of Astonishing Tales. So it was a very short-lived comic book. Well, it's one that I certainly can recommend collecting. It should be quite reasonably priced, I would have thought. I don't think that they're excessively expensive. Certainly not in tatty condition like this. They're not. These ones are very poor quality. But yeah, they're nice reading copies, and that's, to me, all that matters. So, totally recommended series, Astonishing Tales, the Ka-Zar period anyway.